Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Ronin's Den. I'm Steve. As always, I'm joined by my co host, Eric. Eric, today we are continuing our series where we go over the classes of Fabula Ultima, and today we are going to be talking about the Chimerist. For those of you who don't know, the Chimerist in Fabula Ultima is kind of the druid, the shapeshifter, the wild mage, the one that deals with nature or animals depending upon how you want to look at it. Eric, why don't you give us your thoughts on the Chimerist?
So I like the Chimerist because it reminds me of the Blue Mage from Final Fantasy. It lets you take different abilities from the different monsters and use them as your own. And we'll get into that as we go through the skills down below. But I think it also has some of the more fun and unique skill abilities from all the classes. I know you made use of one of them quite extensively in our game for a while. So I know you have some good feelings on this class.
Also, Kara, if you watch our Welcome to Capiterra game, has the skill that is probably my favorite in the entire game, and we will get there when we get there. But my thoughts on the Chimerist are, I never thought of it as the blue mage, but you are absolutely right. Some of the skills there do it. I like the way it plays into animals, and it's kind of that nature-loving class. If it were not the Chimerist, it would probably be called the Druid. So, as always with every class, the first thing you get are a couple of free benefits. And the free benefits you get with the Chimerist are 5 additional mind points. For those of you, a reminder, mind points are how you cast your magic. You also get access to the ritualism discipline, meaning you can cast certain rituals if you take those skills. The first skill that you get, though, is called Consume. And after you deal damage to one or more creatures with a spell, if you have an arcane dagger or a flail weapon equipped, you regain the skill level of this skill times 2 mind points. And I like the fact that you get that from casting a spell, not from using those weapons. It's a very neat distinction there. Honestly, this one's pretty straightforward. There's not much to say about it, but
No,
your thoughts?
well, and what's nice about it too is it's passive, right? So you don't actually have to really do anything for this to trigger other than use a spell. It's not costing one of your actions. It's just bolted on to the action itself. This is a great skill. I think that if you take Chimerist, this should be something that you look to put a few points into, at minimum 2 or 3 points.
Recovering mind points is actually very, very beneficial, as we've been finding out as we play. You burn through those really quick.
And with some of the cost of some of these spells that the Chimerist can use, and not even it just doesn't limit you to Chimerist spells when you read the skill either. This is any spell that you cast. So if you have levels in Elementalist or Entropist, Consume will work with it as well. Some of those spells have costs at 10 to 20 mind points. Skill level times 2. That's not a big investment to be casting spells for free.
No.
Well, that brings us to our next skill, Feral Speech. This is your favorite, and this one is so useful. It allows you to communicate with beasts, monster, and plant species in the world. How about you talk about this one? Because you made a lot of use of this.
Yeah. So the thing I like about it from a player perspective is a lot of times there are animals around, and that is a good way to get information. It's a good way to get animals to help you. Like, there are a lot of things you can do with this skill, and it's beasts, monsters, and plants. And that's a lot of enemies or a lot of NPCs that you can interact with. And it's just a nice way to just get a little bit of a nugget of information. And as a game master, it's a fun way to put information into the game without it feeling like I'm giving it away. The player that took feral speech in our game, Kara, she got information from, I think it was some flying lizards in the trees. She was able to communicate with them and get information about where the next group of enemies were. It's a fun way to add lore, information, and this is my favorite skill in the entire game. I will always try to get this if it fits my build.
I have it on one of my characters in a game I'm going to be playing in coming up, where I'm doing Chimerist and Mutant as two of my classes. Which brings us to our next skill.
Pathogenesis. When you deal damage to one or more creatures with one of your Chimerist spells, each of those creatures that share their species with the creature you originally learned the spell from suffers poisoned. Honestly, I don't think this one is as good as some of the other ones that the Chimerist gets. Getting poisoned, it's negligible, and it's limited to the type of species that you got your spell from. And when we talk about that later on with Spell Mimic, it's very limiting. I don't know that I would ever take this. I think it's one of the weaker ones, and coming off of Feral Speech to that, there's no comparison there, but I'd like your thoughts on it.
I think it could be situationally beneficial. So the triggering aspect is it has to share the species that you learn the spell from. Now, we'll get to this class as we get through these videos, and I can't remember which one it is, but I think it's a mutant ability, or it might be a heroic skill, where you can actually change the species of a target that you're facing. So
okay,
that would allow you to get that poison effect on more things, because you can force that change. But also, yes, while limited in its application, this would actually combo with something like Cheap Trick from the Rogue, or any other skill that requires your target to be suffering from a condition. So situationally useful, but yeah, wouldn't be high on my priority unless I'm playing one of those characters that's built around status effects and triggering combos on it.
Yeah. And the next one?
Ritual Chimericism. Okay. Rituals in this game, I have a love-hate relationship with. They are awesome and also a massive headache at once, because so every class has spells, and they're clearly labeled as such. We saw that when we looked at the Arcanist, the different Arcanums. You can basically think of those as spells. And when we get to the Elementalist, you'll see the actual spells, stat blocks for them there. Rituals are there to fill the gap of everything that is not covered by those specific spells. So it's extremely broad in its application, and it falls underneath what would be considered a chimericism spell. So rituals, insanely useful. Hard to educate at the table, though. A lot of buy-in between player and storyteller on that one for what will and won't qualify, and when it is and won't be useful, because you can't use these to do damage, direct damage. It has to be something relating to a Chimerist and their spells that doesn't do damage. A difficult one to use.
So the rituals in Fabula Ultima, I wish they were written out better. It's one of the more confusing things in this system, and that is saying a lot, because there's not a lot confusing in here. Like you said, it has to be within the Chimerist. So when I used it in our last game that you ran, the Rotted Peace, at one point I used a Chimerist ritual to try and summon a Drake to help us in a fight, because I figured, I think there's probably some kind of beastie out there. We are in a fight that looks really bleak. It would be nice to have a Drake on our side. And you were like, yeah, let's build it up. And I cast the ritual. I failed. And the Drake basically was like, yeah, I'm here, but fuck you, go away. So it's one of those things that it's really limited by your imagination. So if you're not a person who can think on the fly or like come up with a out in left field idea, you're going to struggle with rituals. But at the same time, they can be a lot of fun and very interesting. So, love hate. I agree. It's a love hate. Uh, and then we are going to get to the final one, the final skill. And this is the one that really kind of makes the Chimerist spell mimic. Basically, when you see a creature belonging to the beast, monster, or plant species cast a spell, you may immediately choose to learn that spell as a Chimerist spell of your own. If you do, record the species of the creature you learned it from. And then it gives you like basically the amount of Chimera spells you can get. I'm not going to go through all the technical jumbo, but basically when you see a creature cast a spell, you can just learn it because you saw it, and that's kind of your thing. The thing I will warn with this is that you really need to have a talk with your game master. Hey, we need to fight some beasts, monsters, and plants, so I can get some spells. Or duality, Eric here, when I was in a game and I had this, he's like, just pick 3 spells from monsters or whatever, because you're probably not going to run into any. And you have some, pick 3. I'm like, perfect.
And that's also there. We came up with using rituals for you to learn those additional spells by being able to call those beasts, monsters, or plants to you to teach you magic.
We just never got to actually see that at the table, but that was what we did come up with. So, Eric, what are your final thoughts on the Chimerist?
Final thoughts for Chimerist would be it's a wonderful thing to build a character around if you're looking to use the enemy's skills against them in combat, or if you're looking for more of that nature vibe. Their alternate names that they give you in the book are Druid, Shapeshifter, and Wild Mage. But honestly, if you're a fan of the Blue Mage in Final Fantasy, this is the character class you're going to want to pick to add into your build.
Yeah, I really agree. I think this is a class that you could easily say, this is going to be my class. This is going to be the identity of my character, and everything else I pick is going to enhance this. Feral speech, as I said, is my absolute favorite skill in the entire game. I don't think there's anything more useful for like story and progressing the narrative along. But yeah, that's really my thoughts.
Sounds good. Well, that's all we got for the Chimerist today. We're going to be doing more of these videos covering all the different classes in Fabula Ultima and their skills and a good brief breakdown for them. Next up, we'll be doing the Dark Blade, so keep your eyes open for that video. Steve, you have anything for us on our way out?
Nope. If you like this video and keep wanting to see more, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. It's a small click for you, but it really helps us get out to the wider audience. And if there's a class in particular that you have questions about, feel free to ask in the comments. We're more than happy to help. Fabula Ultima is an amazing game, and people need to be playing it more.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll see you next time.